start with something that isn't specific to travel, but it's a very useful tool that I have found for any rail fan. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with something called Open Railway Map. And I'm going to use it because I want to use it to show where I have gone and how I use this map. So I'm going to start sharing this first. Here we are. This is Open Railway Map, which is based on OpenStreetMap. And if you look on the left, you can see that it has a number of things you can turn on and off: track gauge, electrification, and so forth. Since this is the Electric Railroaders Association, I thought it'd be interesting just to a quick look at, notice that in the United States and Canada, there's almost nothing that's electrified except the Northeast Corridor. And if you zoom in, you'll see that Chicago will show up, you know, the former Illinois Central. And I'm going to pan over to Hawaii. And because of the people who maintain this, it's open source. They have already filled in the new what's called skyline. Although they don't. And we go down to New Zealand, where I traveled to. You will see that there's not a lot of electrification in New Zealand either, or Australia. It's pretty much restricted to commuter lines. So, although, and I'll talk about this during the show, there is one long section on the North Island of high voltage AC electrification. But it's kind of a mixed bag of what's happened there. One of the things that's really useful in something like this is when you zoom in, an example in Christchurch, which
Hello.
we'll be talking about later. Hello? Yes? Anyway, which I was talking about later, is we go down here and you can see that's their tramway in downtown. And out here is the Railroad Museum at Ferrymeet, which, as I say, I'm jumping ahead in a way just to show you on the map, which shows you the Heritage Park and the tram line. And so this is an extremely useful tool, and I use Open Railway Map all the time. It even works really well on your phone. So I'm going to stop sharing this and start into the show. So the first thing, I did not take any pictures myself, and I should have, of one major change that's happened in San Francisco. The way I put this trip together, so let me do the share screen again. I'm going to share this part of the screen. So here we are in San Francisco on Van Ness at Clay. I know some people are not big bus fans, but San Francisco has a huge trolley bus network. And I don't know when the last time anybody was out there, but you'll notice in this picture, what they've done is they've built a busway down the middle of Van Ness. And it is a trolley bus busway, and they completely reconfigured the street. They moved the wires into the middle. If you know, one of the things you can do with Google is you can go backwards in time. And if you do, you can go back to, this is what it looked like back about 10 years ago. There was trees in the island. And yes, there was overhead wire, but it was over by the side of the road. So they completely reconfigured this. Here it is. Again, now it's under construction. This is one of the neat things that Google added to their Street View, is you can now see what they've done over time. So that in San Francisco was something I didn't take any of my own pictures of, but I just wanted to show people, if they're interested in trolley buses, that they've got a major new busway. So I'm going to start the show with my own photos now in San Francisco. So let me share that screen. And here we go. It's not, I should be sharing, but it's not. Hold on. Should be sharing just a minute while I get the share to start. share screen. The screen should be sharing.
All right, I
No,
am going
I'm
to
there we go.
share. Okay, you're good. Okay.
Okay. Can everybody see my slides?
Yes. It's still showing a panel of 25 slides, so we don't see one slide. You need to go
You see it
to
now?
there. You go.
Okay. All
Now,
right.
now we
So
see it. Yeah.
okay, so in San Francisco, I took a few pictures of the PCCs that everyone enjoys. This
Are you
is
there, Lou?
pardon?
Are
Yes,
you in?
I'm here. Yep.
Hello?
Yep. Can you hear me?
I'm going to mute Bob because I think he's having another conversation.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you, Paul. So anyway, this is the Toronto PCC painted in Toronto colors. There it is. And I lived in Toronto for 5 years, so I always enjoy seeing Toronto PCCs. This one, I'm trying to remember, I think it's Baltimore, the blue. I don't remember which one. That's is that Twin Cities?
This is correct.
Which one is that? STE. Oh, that's Mexico City, right? That's
What is
Mexico.
this?
Here we are with one on Market Street in, this is DC Transit. And then this is the new Chinatown station on the T light rail, which had opened, I think, Jack May had given us a fairly good overview of San Francisco recently. But I wanted to show an interesting part of this new light rail, which is an extremely deep tunnel that goes under, has to pass under both the BART and the Muni Metro as it goes north under Market Street. And then, as you know, in San Francisco, it becomes very hilly. So even though it may go uphill, the Chinatown station is also it's a very deep station. So here we are at the Chinatown station, which is currently the end of the line. And what I did see, this is looking down into the tunnel where they have a double crossover, and then it dead ends for now. This is what it looks like. There's elevators to go up. And this is the interesting thing. In that station, they have an actual real-time diagram of the Muni Metro system. I don't know if I can zoom in, and I don't know if people can actually see this. This actually shows you, that's West Portal, the far at the station, Castro Street. This is the ramp up to the church line. They have a crossover. There's Van Ness, Civic Center, and so forth, and all the way down to Embarcadero. That's Embarcadero. And then this is the other line, and it shows you where the trains are. I was really surprised that they would be showing this in a public space. This is something like a, like a control board. That so now I'm going to go back to, I think I stopped it from running full screen. Okay, here we are. This is outside of the tunnel. This is where it crosses the N line, where it used to turn. You can see the curve here, where the N and the T used to be through routed. This is the new section on 3rd going into the tunnel that would go under downtown. Here we are. And this is the commuter rail station. I unfortunately did not see when I was there any of the new electrified equipment. This is the overhead that they've put in. They're converting the commuter system to high voltage electric, and it's in testing, but unfortunately I didn't see it. I just saw that, which is the conventional gallery cars. And then a couple more shots in the subway. This is at, I think this was the Castro stop on the Market Street line. What's interesting is this is something new. I don't remember this being the way the lights are on the escalators. I think that's oh yeah, and I give you one shot of the cable car. My observation of cable cars in San Francisco is that they don't run anything near the frequency they once did before the rebuilding. I had to wait about 20 minutes for this car to show up, which is a very long time. So now I'm going to jump not to this trip. This trip was from here to San Francisco for a few days, stop over in Hawaii, and then I went to New Zealand. I did that to break up the long flights. It was also a question of where I could get frequent flyer miles and that sort of thing. As a comparison to the new line in Honolulu is also Montreal's new so-called light urban rapid rail, or whatever, the REM, the Réseau Express Métropolitain, which opened last year in July. I happened to be there one day after the free rides stopped, but I did get to ride it, and this is a map. If anyone knows Montreal, it's a schematic map of the metro, which is the green, orange, yellow, and the blue. That's the rubber-tired metro system, and green is this new REM. What is operating right now is Central Station to Brossard. The line north this way is a replacement for what was the CN electrification, and they're building a branch into the airport, which will go into a tunnel. And then this partly takes over what was a freight spur and then goes next to the Route 40 expressway out quite far away out on the West Island. Notice the stations are quite far apart, more like commuter train stations than a metro or an intercity system. In 2011, this is a picture I'm throwing in. This is what the commuter system looked like in 1972. It's one of my first pictures I took as a rail fan. It is a scan of the print. I don't have a scanner to scan the negative, which probably would have come out better. But this was the kind of multiple unit equipment that they used to run, non-air conditioned, 2400 volt DC was the original electrification. Then they upgraded it to a 25 kilovolt, 60 hertz AC system. And now they're downgrading it to 1500 volts DC for the RAM. These are the sorts of elevated structures. This is along the as you can see, this was 3 years ago. It was a rainy day. This is where this is the Point Claire station being built. There it is. Well, I did this picture under a gas. It's crossing right near a gas station. Now, notice this is not a light rail system. It's pretty heavy construction. It's all grade separated. And the Honolulu system looks an awful lot like this. The biggest difference is in Montreal, they're using overhead 1500 volt DC. In Hawaii, they're using third rail 750. So here we are on the REM in Montreal in July of last year. I took a ride from Central Station out to Brossard and back. So these are a few of the pictures I took. It's driverless, so you can sit right front and look out of the train. And this is the curve where it leaves the CN right of way and heads off towards the Champlain Bridge. This is a big substation that brings in the high voltage and then goes underground in Montreal. There's the Victoria Bridge, which is 100 and something years old. The main freight line of CN going east from Montreal. It accommodates double stack. It was built, it's known as the Victoria Jubilee Bridge, but it actually existed earlier than that. And it has two roadways on each side. This is the yard that it passes by where VIA equipment is stored, as well as the other EXO rapid transit. See, there's some VIA equipment, Bud cars in the yard. That's some of that new equipment that they're just getting. And here we are. You see their overhead wire. These cars are built by Alstom. I think they were built in India, though, and they had some problems at the beginning. There wasn't a lot of ridership because it was not rush hour. And it's, it's all platform doors. It's all driverless. Here we are. This is on the South Shore. This is, I think this is the station for Nuns Island, Ile des Sœurs. And here we are on the way back. Let's go back to Montreal. And I can blow this up a little bit more. See, not only can you see the, over here, you might recognize these. They look an awful lot like New Jersey Transit's multiple level units. This is the type of Bombardier equipment that was run for the 20-something years when it ran high voltage AC. I'm not sure what they're going to do with this equipment. It's not expired in terms of its life, but now they can't use it. And I don't know if there's anybody who's going to buy it from them. And here, that's a shot of the better one. Now we're going, now we come to Hawaii. It's a beautiful day. As you can see right here, it was a little bit shady, and about 30 seconds later, the sun came out. That's Waikiki. So what have they done in Hawaii? What they've opened so far is the line from here, from Aloha Stadium, over this way, schematic, and out to, there is nothing here at this station. There's not even a park and ride. I wanted to take the train from this park and ride, and there isn't one. There's a bus stop, there's a transfer, but there's no parking area. But there's not much built up out here either. The next section is supposed to open to go by the airport, and at least this far, and then eventually into downtown, and eventually as far as the Ala Moana, the giant shopping center, which is just west of Waikiki. So this is what it looks like right near the airport, where it's not open yet. As you can see, it looks an awful lot like the Montreal system. The same type of structures, elevated, completely grade separated, and also automated. This is out in that area where I said there's not a lot, not yet anyway. There's some building, but it is generally pretty spartan out here. And there's very few people riding the train because it sort of goes nowhere to nowhere. Here's a close-up. You can see the third rail. There's danger, high voltage 750. There's the wheels in the pickup shoe. Here's their kind of platform doors. It's open, unlike the Montreal one, which uses full height platform doors. This uses sort of the 3/4 style. And you get a terrific rail fan seat. I mean, can't ask for a better seat in a train. Sit right up front, look out. Here's a couple of pictures of it. This was, I think, on the way, I'm trying to remember where I parked, and I took sort of a round trip. I went from one end to the other and back. It was late in the day. The sun was not quite setting. You can see these large bridges. It has, it goes over the highway, crosses back over the highway. We're getting close to, this is the yards where the trains are stored. Some kids and their family wanted to be in the rail fan seat. And this was just nice lighting. Yeah, cool. This is going back north. I think I parked at the stadium. Yeah, I took it from the stadium out to the far end and back. A few more shots in Hawaii. This is at the Hawaiian Railway Museum. EVA 1 is an 1890 Baldwin that was used at the EVA sugar plantation. It's part of their collection. This one is restored cosmetically. They run a train. It's actually not far from the end of the light rail to the, excuse me, some water. I can show on the map, and it runs, I don't know, a few miles. It doesn't run very fast, maybe 15 miles an hour. You can certainly beat it by car. This is a Whitcomb that was built. It's a 45-ton ex-US Navy Whitcomb. This is an actual Hawaiian steamer. It is number 85, was built in Alco in 1910, the 260, and they plan to rebuild it. It was actually in Maui on the defunct Lahaina Kanapali Pacific, which had started to do some work on it and never completed it. Here we are at the far end of the line where it comes down quite close to the ocean. At least there it is at the west end of the line. There we go. That's Hawaiian Rail. And then just this is the Alona blowhole, which is a lava tube where the ocean, when the waves come crashing in, create this kind of geyser effect. If anybody's ever seen it, it's quite neat. And beautiful Hawaiian beaches and the color of the water. So then I left Hawaii and I was on my way to New Zealand. So now I have 3 videos I'm going to try and show, and hopefully they will work and will not be too jerky. So I need to change the share. Go to this switching shares, that's all.
Andrew, as a reminder, when you reshare at the bottom, you'll see 2 buttons, one that says optimize for video, the other that
Yep.
says share sound. So make sure you click those.
It's under the more, right? Where's the optimize for video is under?
It's when you click the green share screen.
Oh, right.
You'll see it
Yes.
at the bottom.
Mm-hmm. Okay, just a minute. I have to find the, I don't know why it doesn't want to get me to the, trying to share this, the appropriate screen. Just start the video. Hold on. I don't know why, with all the different screens that are up, the share screen, let me just hit the share right there. Share screen. Okay. Select the application. Done this often, and I don't know why. The one that's up there, the one that has my, oh, there it is, finally. It was kind of hidden for some reason. Can you see it now? The screen with the videos?
No, unfortunately, there's nothing shared.
No, we don't see it.
Oh, there.
Oh,
Should-
now it's starting. Okay. We see your file folder with 3 videos in it.
Is the video sharing or not?
No, double click on it. It's not full screen yet. I mean, we see your file folder showing 3 videos.
Oh, you only see the file folder, not the video when I clicked on it. That's
Actual
bizarre.
video, correct.
Hmm.
You did the optimize for video, which I don't know what button it is, but I think you and Paul do know.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, it should be sharing now.
Okay. All right. Looks like.
You're
All right.
seeing
Yeah,
it.
no. There, no. Yep. You're good.
This is in the Montreal Ram. It's very short videos. I said the videos I have to show. This is coming across the Champlain Bridge. Did those come through? People could see them?
Yes.
Hello? Okay. And then this is the one in Hawaii. All right, well, that's it for video. I just, so I'm gonna now jump to New Zealand. So let me close the windows I don't need open. And I will now share. New Zealand, I think this is the one I want, yes. All right, I'm gonna now share. Start the video. All right, so here we are in New Zealand. So I'm gonna give a little bit of an introduction to New Zealand about the railway system and New Zealand itself. The railway system in New Zealand is really interesting. The mainline railways were all built eventually, not right at the beginning, but they standardized on 3-foot 6-inch gauge, which some people know as Cape gauge. It's the predominant gauge outside of the high-speed rail in Japan. So both islands, whatever rail system that they still have, is 3-foot 6. They have almost no passenger service, and New Zealand turns out to have the highest vehicle ownership, car ownership of any country, even beating the US. Now, the one thing that I will say about New Zealand is it's empty. Other than the fact that they have 5 million people, of which 1/3 live in the city of Auckland, and there's 2 other cities of less than 500,000 people, Wellington, the capital, and Christchurch, it's very sparsely populated. It's very empty. They have very few expressways except in the Auckland area. They have some local urban expressways in Christchurch and Dunedin, short sections. Everything else is basically 2-lane roads with not a lot of traffic on them. So it was very easy. I rented a car on each island. I flew Hawaii to Auckland, which that by itself was 9 hours. I overnighted in Auckland and went to the South Island. I flew to Christchurch and started to travel south. So here's a map of the rail system, the very schematic one given from one of the annual reports of New Zealand. There's the ferry service that runs between Picton and Wellington. It's about 3.5 hours to cross the straits here. So as I said, I flew to Auckland and flew to Christchurch the next morning, rented a car and started driving south. And my main purpose in New Zealand was not rail. New Zealand is very scenic. There's fantastic mountains here, the Alps that go up to 12,000 feet. There's volcanoes, there's geysers, there's all sorts of things. But there are a few passenger trains to ride, and they have extremely well-run heritage sites, museums, and so forth. So where I was able to, I did go visit those. So this is a more schematic map of the different rail lines. On this map, by the way, this line right here from Dunedin up to Middlemarch is highly recommended as a tourist run, that they still run a train on it. Unfortunately, since COVID, they've practically not been able to start the service. In the month of November, when I was there, they were going to run it one day in the entire month, not when I was in town. So I did see the equipment, but I didn't ride the train. This is what in 2018 was left of their passenger service. The Dunedin Middlemarch stuff runs. This doesn't run as far as I know. I was supposed to ride this train from Christchurch to Greymouth and back across Arthur Pass. However, the weather was so bad, I canceled it and rode this train from Christchurch up this way a day early. And I did not ride on because I drove from Wellington to Auckland. Trying to get it there. So this is what passenger trains now exist. This shows the commuter system that exists in Wellington, and there's a little bit of trains that go beyond the commuter system as far as Palmerston North. And there's a commuter system out of Auckland as well. This is in 1930, the South Island. Notice that there's a gap here. This railroad didn't get built until, I can't remember the date, I did look it up. I think it was only finished very close to World War II. This one disappeared early in history, Nelson. And a lot of these other lines, like this one out of Dunedin that twists and turns, now ends about there. The rest of it's abandoned. A lot of these others are gone. Basically, they are used for freight. This is what it looked like in 1966. So there's a little bit more. Like there's the line along the coast. The North Island, again, there were gaps that were later filled, and some of them have been lifted since then. The rails have been abandoned. One of the interesting lines that has been built, no passenger service, is this line sort of looped around because there's a big chain of mountains here. They've built a tunnel through there very recently, and it's dieselized and it's ventilated. So the train no longer goes around this loop, but kind of goes straight across. There's a big port here that's very important, import-export. So what this is the Electric Railroaders Association. So what electric railroads did New Zealand have? They had, on the South Island, they had two short sections of electrification. One was the tunnel through the mountains, the Otira Tunnel, which was at the time when it was opened in 1923, was the longest tunnel in the rail tunnel in the British Empire. It was electrified with this equipment at 1500 volts DC, English Electric, 1923. Then they also electrified Christchurch to Littleton. That's a single track tunnel. It goes from Christchurch to the harbor town of Littleton. And they used to have commuter trains on it as well. Once they opened the road tunnel next to the rail tunnel in the 70s, they pulled down the overhead and killed the commuter service as well. Wellington started to electrify its commuter rail system in 1938, also at 1500 volts DC. I'll go into the details of how and what happened in Wellington and how it's a very modern system with very dense commuter service. And then they bought different sorts of equipment for it over time, these English electric locomotives. You'll notice there's not a large number of locomotives in any of these systems. They did use multiple unit electrics in Wellington. These 5 Toshiba locomotives that were withdrawn in 97 and 2001, 2 of them are at the museum in Ferry Weed. I'll show you pictures of them. And then they do have a high voltage electrification on the North Island, which I showed initially. It runs from here, from Palmerston North to Hamilton. It does not go to either Auckland or Wellington. This is at Ferry Mead. This is actually, it's a screen capture, believe it or not, for YouTube. Ferry Mead is the museum in the Christchurch area. It's it's not just railroads. They have trolley buses. It's a transport museum, but it's extremely well designed. They call it a heritage park. This was a run where they ran 2 types of electrics. You'll notice the E3 and the E7 type on the same train. It's actually next to the line that goes to Littleton. This is the current crop of the modern high voltage AC electric that runs on the north, and they've just been refurbished. These are not my pictures. This is a picture on the North Island of an electric locomotive pulling a short passenger train. The one passenger train that still runs on the North Island is diesel hauled, even though it goes under the electric section. This is a picture of freight double-headed electric, and another one. Now this is my own picture. This is coming south from Christchurch. As I was driving south on the main road, I noticed a freight train stopped. I was able to park, get some few nice pictures of it. This was going south from Christchurch, headed towards probably Dunedin. As I said, I did not have great weather. This is headed towards Mount Cook, which is their highest mountain at 12,000 something feet, somewhere in here in the clouds. That's all I ever got to see of it. I wanted to get a little diversion from railroads, so while I was taking pictures somewhere, a seagull landed on my car. Now, the only railroad station of any note that is still in existence is the one at Dunedin. It's mostly a museum. It is open to the public. You can wander around. And it is the stop for the Otiri Gorge train when it is running. It's a beautifully maintained station with, really nice mosaics. Those for the New Zealand Rail. Some really good stained glass windows. They're showing their very primitive early type of steamers, very English style. And this is the train, the Gorge train, but it's just sitting there, unfortunately. It is, they had a door open, you can see the engine. Now, once upon a time, Dunedin had commuter service. It turns out that both Christchurch and Dunedin had originally, I'm sure, steam, then rail car and diesel-powered commuter service. Long gone. New Zealand basically killed their passenger trains, I think, in the late 70s, early 80s. They had some really nice ones. One of the trains that was sold, and I remember getting a tour of it in Singapore, it was gutted and turned into the Eastern and Oriental Express that's run by the same company as the Orient Express in Europe. It runs between Singapore and Bangkok. But the equipment originally was New Zealand, because that's also 3'6" gauge. This is on the north side of the South Island. This is where I went for a not too long hike to see the glacier. That's the road along the, there are a lot of single lane bridges. As I said, the place is very low population, very little traffic. So you'll come to these bridges and there'll be a sign that seems to alternate as to which direction has the prime, the prime direction, and the other direction has to wait if a car happens to come along. That's all I got to see. Somewhere in here, if you can see my cursor, is the glacier. So this is the history. In 1923, this was when they electrified, they opened the tunnel and they used electric because they realized steam was not going to work. Too long a tunnel. It has a grade, so steam going uphill would have, choked. So it was in service until they could replace it with modern diesels and some ventilation. This is near the end of service. These are pictures that I found on the internet of one of the series of the electric locomotives. This is the train that I would have ridden. As I said, this is not my photo, but this is about the kind of weather I got. It was even cloudier up here on Arthur Pass. So here's the tunnel. And you can see it has a grade of about 2 or 3. It's a good 2% or slightly more. Sorry. Now these are my own pictures. Again, this is at Greymouth. This is at the north end of the Transalpine. You can see it was wet and cloudy. This is why I didn't. This was the day, 1 or 2 days before I was going to ride the train over from Christchurch to here, and then I saw the weather and I said, it's not worth it. So it's a very nice train. I mean, they have,
Andrew, the diesel engines, are they built US or somewhere else? They look
I have,
US.
I did, no, they're not American. I think they're a, I didn't look that up. I think it's a, I think it's a
Okay, that was
General
an
Motors.
audience.
Pardon?
I say it was an
Something.
audience question.
Yeah, I'll have to
So,
look that up. I don't remember. This was once I got over the pass and headed back towards Christchurch. It's a town called Darfield where I stayed overnight, and I got ahead of the train because so I got a few pictures of the same train headed back. See, they have, it's not quite a dome car, but they do, and they have this open car. It's kind of like what rail fans like, like an open gondola. You can go and take it. So another diversion. This was out on the I can't remember how you pronounce the peninsula southeast of Christchurch where I stayed. And I can demo how sharp my lens is. I was very pleased with these pictures. Anyway, this is the Christchurch Railroad Station, or I should say what was the Christchurch Railroad Station. It's gone. The trains that originate in Christchurch now originate at a suburban location. And this downtown station is long gone. For a short while on that line between Christchurch and Littleton, before it was electrified, they tried battery cars, 1926 to 29. I don't know what became of them because then they electrified, and that was around until the 70s. So here it is. I found a lot of these things on the internet. Christchurch, Littleton. This is a, you can see they actually advertised the suburban timetable out of Christchurch. In 71, they were still showing the electric locomotive. Addington is more or less where the station is today. It's actually sort of there where the arrow is. Yes, there's a train that goes to Picton, and there's the train that goes to Greymouth. Nothing runs this way anymore. No passenger service. So they had some fairly frequent service, practically hourly. There is no commuter service at it. They're talking about putting something back. This was something I learned about while I did ride one passenger train. As I said, I rode from Christchurch, not to the last stop, to the second to last stop, not Picton, but Blenheim, which is about 20 minutes from Picton. There was a huge earthquake in 2016. You can see what happened to the railroad here. See the tunnel tracks? It's called the Kaikoura earthquake. It's pretty devastating. Now this is on that train. Finally got to see the snowy mountains. The clouds cleared on that day. Here's the train. I'm taking it from that open car at the back end. And we're right along the beach. And these mountains they're only, I think, about 8,000 feet high. They're not as high as the main Alps, but finally got to see some snowy mountains without clouds on them. And this goes back to 1959. New Zealand at that time tried rail cars. They had all sorts of services. It's all gone. They did this on the North Island from Wellington to New Plymouth. They had a daytime rail car. This is 1975. No, nothing. It's all gone. 1981, they still had passenger service. There it is. It's the Silver Fern that got taken to Singapore. All right. Excuse me. I'm going to take a very short break and get some water. Back. One of the bits of scenery or railroad scenery between Wellington and Auckland is this thing known as the Raurimu Spiral. The train to descend from a higher elevation has, you know, a full loop and a two 180s like that. This was right near the two volcanoes in the center of the North Island. I was hoping to see something here again. It was cloudy. This is a good, you know, it's turned on its side, but it's an original map to show you. And notice they're mapping things in the old chains, which is very old English measurement. This is a train, a steam engine train going around the spiral. This is what it looks like from an aerial, from a drone. And this is what I would have, this is the north, they do have a train, one a day between Wellington and Auckland, and that goes by Mount, I can't pronounce its name, one of the two volcanoes that are on the North Island. I saw nothing, I saw clouds. And here's a picture of very spectacular. That's a new diversion. Note the overhead, and note that the passenger train is diesel haul. They don't use the electric on this section except for freights. Anyway, that's this is my section on New Zealand's mainline trains, and now we're getting to the trams, which is the. Are we sharing? Oops, sorry, wrong slide here. This one. Here we go. Trams. Can everybody see the map? Whoops. Is that working?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
All right. So tramways are as electric railroaders, most of our interest is in trams, light rail, and so forth. This shows all the different cities that at one time in New Zealand had some sort of tram service. So on the South Island, you had Christchurch had steam and horse and then electric from 1905 to 1954. Dunedin had cable, 3'6", same as San Francisco. Two of them lasted, they lasted 47, 50. What they didn't have in Dunedin, and they look back on it now, is they didn't have a Friedel Klausmann to, as the woman who was behind saving San Francisco cable cars. Dunedin was the second city in the world to ever have cable cars, and the full curve was invented there. It's a very hilly city. It has the world's steepest street, not where the cable car ran. It's a different part of town, but it is a very steep street. I did not get to Invercargill. I'm not going to go through that. That was the southernmost tram system in the world. It still would be because there's nothing in Argentina or that far south. Then you have Wellington, which had an unusual 4-foot gauge, and they were the last city in New Zealand to abandon their trams in '64. Napier system died in '31 because Napier was hit with a gigantic earthquake, which pretty much leveled the whole town. And after that, they didn't have the money to rebuild it. Gisborne only had battery cars, and Auckland ended at the end of '56. They had a fairly large tramway network. New Zealand, as I said, is very proud. They have a lot of heritage. They put their stuff on stamps. So I'm going to start with Dunedin because that was the first city that I visited. Over here is the cable lines. The cable lines went up these 3 hills, and the rest of this was electric. This shows what it was like early and then later on. What's most interesting is this is the current bus system. still pretty much follows, although it's larger than what was the tram system. It's a schematic and different here. This is what they had, double truck cars through their downtown. And by the way, this label says Graham Stewart. Graham Stewart will get a thank you at the end of this. He's written, I have 2 of the books on New Zealand trams. He's written endless books on trams. And he really has done a very good job about documenting this history. This car, number 55, was the last car to run in Dunedin. We will get back to this car because it has been restored and is in at Ferrymead. This is one of their first, the toast rack that they had. This is downtown. I could show the equivalent spot today. It hasn't changed all that much. This was the start of one of the cable lines, as you can see, going up the hill at High Street Princess in downtown Dunedin. This is one of the other cable lines, Warrington. And there's a little short video, should appear. I found this one on the internet. You can see how steep that is. This building still exists today. It's there. It's no longer the technical college, but it's a multi-purpose building. These houses are still, this view looks almost identical except for the fact there's no cable car tracks. This is another picture of one of their cable cars pulling a trailer up the hills. The caption to this picture said to note something interesting is that, I don't know if you can see it in this picture, the one that's closer to us is going uphill, the other one is going downhill, which to us North Americans would seem quite normal, but in New Zealand, they drive on the left. So initially when this line was opened, it was opened American style, even against the days of the way they were driving their horses at the time, and they did switch it. This I found really interesting. You know that one of the Dunedin cars is at Seashore. They donated it. This is a letter. Notice Wellesley, Massachusetts, and these are kids getting on the cable car. This is one of the last runs, and this is interesting. Look at the crowds, and there's no explanation for why it was covered with flowers. I think the next picture is, no, they've saved another one of the cable cars and put it outside a restaurant. This is the one at Seashore. So Seashore has a Dunedin cable car up in Maine. Now here's Christchurch Network. This I should point out, this will come up, this area called New Brighton. We'll show, this is a separate railroad company originally. This is around 1890 when they first built some of the horse car lines. And then later on, this is when it was electrified. A fairly large system. This is where the airport is today, out here. This is the botanical garden, and the railroad station today is about there. The original railway station is where it says railway, was downtown, but this is where the trains now leave from. Look carefully in the next picture, you'll see how the lines, a few years later, they had fewer lines and cut away. Ferrymead is out here, by the way, about there. That's where the railway museum is. So here's a pretty good, oh, they had a causeway which was built with water. Some interesting pictures I found of that. Anyway, this is the system. It's one of the first runs. This is their current heritage line that runs through downtown. It's an interesting loop. It goes around, down this way, out, back, around, and like that. So there it is. This is from the open railway map. This is the line, this is the railroad system in orange, and I superimposed the classic network of what the tram system once upon a time looked like. So yeah, here was the railway station where it doesn't exist anymore. Here's where this suburban stop is now. And these are my own pictures of the city tour line. These are all they have some other cars that are not Christchurch cars. These were Christchurch cars that have been restored. This is a really neat one. 11. There it is. This is now a lot of the work for this is done at the Ferrymead Heritage Park. In fact, I think it's the blue car which has just been taken out of service for, and it gets trucked to the Heritage Park where they have the shops to maintain them. And they bring them. They'll be gone for a couple of months. This is the Heritage Park. Unfortunately, I was there on a day when nothing was operating, so they even make it look like classic New Zealand town with the double track there. But what this is the those Japanese built Toshiba electrics. They've preserved one of them. These were the commuter cars for a while in Wellington. They were built by the Hungarians. This is a Guns Mavag electric multiple unit, no longer in service. This is a horse car, a Christchurch original double-deck horse car. These were inside the barn. I asked for permission. They were very, very nice and showed me around their whole club. They had 7 people working at Ferrymead doing restoration, and they're all paid. These are not volunteers, so they get their work done, very quickly. This car, I received a nice picture of it outside from the museum afterwards. This is they call it a California car because it's very much like the California, the enclosed middle and the open 2 ends. This one operates. This is a double-decker Christchurch electric tram. And this was the poster they had up about restoring car number 24, which was the gentleman who painted this sent me I have a thank you for him at the end. Sent me a full-size picture of that. So this is in November when they were working on it. These are the roof panels coming up that they were going to put in, beautifully polished. And this is an original picture from when it went into service, 100 years ago or so. This is when they got it. This is received from the museum. And this is after it was restored. I think it was January of this year. There it is. And it actually operates now on the tourist line in Christchurch. This is a full size of that painting. And this is pictures of them operating double-decker and a trolley bus. As I said, these were provided to me by the museum. So it's this one. That number 1 is number 1. It's their first car, electric car. Here's the 22 out in the sun, not squeezed in the way I saw it inside the car barn. And these are Dunedin had the first electric tram in New Zealand, 1900. That one was built 3-foot 6-inch gauge, that line, and that line went out in 1936. But this is a painting of what it would have looked like. It says it's a rare picture of style in Dunedin of a double truck car, 65. And here is a painting by the same gentleman of number 66. And this is called a Sydney bogie car. St. Clair, if we go back to the map, we would see that, as I said, the bus services still pretty much follow the same pattern as the trams did in Dunedin. So now I'm going to jump to, sorry, that was Wellington, Christchurch. I'm going to jump to Wellington. Wellington is, as I said, on the North Island. I flew over between the two islands. It's like a 15-minute flight. It's 3.5 hours on the ferry, which could be quite a rough crossing. It was, it saved me a lot of time basically to fly over. The airport in Wellington is about here. Now, Wellington is a very hilly city also, and had a number of tunnels for the trams. This one was single track and is still used today by buses. The two tunnels up here are on main roads. They're double tunnels, and the cars and buses pass them. But this one's really interesting. Hatatai tunnel. So, this is to give you an idea. This is the full extent of the system. And by 1950, Wellington, as you can see, the systems that went up into the mountains were gone. They did have the one through the tunnel here, the Hatatai tunnel, and they did have north-south. That's the railway station. Downtown is really this area right there. They also have a funicular. Now, originally the funicular was a cable car. The cable car was there until sometime in the 70s when it was deemed unsafe. And so they, rather than rebuilding it, they replaced it entirely by a modern 2-car counterbalance funicular and in the same location. This is what the funicular looks like today. It has a number of stops on the hill up and down. Here's the car. And this is what I got, as you see, it was gray. And I did get a picture of what it looks like off the internet when it's nice and sunny. It's just a close-up of a great day. This is inside. There's a museum at the top next to, blow it up. There's this, we had time. Anyway, how it was built, it's very well described. They have a nice, see, it actually goes through little short tunnels. This is where it ends up on the street. It has a little trestle, goes through another tunnel, and then ends up at the top of Kilburn near the botanical gardens. And yeah, first run 1902. So, and that's one of the original cars. What's interesting is you'll notice these sort of seats that are slanted because people sat on them sideways. Yeah, see, it was called a cable car because that's what it was. It wasn't the funicular originally. Now here we are at the Wellington Railway Station with their trams running in front. This has got to be sometime in the 50s from the style of the cars. This is in downtown Wellington, much earlier. Full combination. They had double deckers, they had all sorts of cars. Wellington had, and it was unusual, it was also four-foot gauge. It's the last car. This is the one of this tunnel is still used today by cars and buses. And then this is the one-track tunnel, which, as I said, is used by buses with a traffic light at either end to let them through. So this is a map of the commuter rail system in Wellington. Load up. This is from Robert Schwandel's website. This line leaving Wellington, going up through Johnsonville, was the original railroad out of Wellington. It then continued this way. This tunnel was only opened in 1937 or 38. And at that point, they severed this line, electrified it as a commuter line, and trains it saved, this is a very steep climb for steam. The other, so anyway, this is the system today. And there's another tunnel here, which was only opened in 55. Before that, the trains went over the mountain and used a fell system. It was so steep. I don't know if you're familiar with the fell system. There's only the one on the island of Man and somewhere else. It uses a center rail that is gripped sideways. It's not a rack system. But again, by 1955, they decided that it was such a pain to maintain this railroad over the mountain that they built a tunnel. Out here, this town right there is where the Wellington Tram Museum is. There'll be some photos coming up of that. This is the plans they have for upgrading. This is a steam engine going up the hill to Johnsonville, double-headed. I rode the Johnsonville line, the electrified commuter service. It's very hard to take any pictures of it because it's in this sort of ravine and you can't get to it. However, my hotel just happened to be very conveniently located a little north of the railroad station and had a wonderful view of the entire rail yard behind it. So I got some really good pictures. This is a diesel shunter. These passenger cars are the ones that are used on the service that goes as far as Palmerston. This is the electric, the new, and I did take notes on it is, the equipment is, I believe, oh, these are Spanish, that's right, they're CAF. They were built in Spain. These are the newest version of the electrical multiple units that are used on the Auckland system. This is the train station today with a statue of the Mahatma Gandhi in the front. Here we are on the platforms. It's a comparison shot of the little switcher diesel with the modern electric. And this is the same kind of locomotive they use, the diesel, to pull the passenger service, for example, between Christchurch and Picton and between Christchurch and Greymouth. So, but they have very frequent service. Johnsonville, I think, has service at every 20 minutes. The other three lines at 1 hour or 30 minutes apart. It's a very dense urban commuter system. That's again taken from my hotel. It's in the evening, and the next morning it was sunny. I think the next morning may have been Saturday. There's a lot less service on Saturday. Now we get to the Tram Museum outside of Wellington in, I can never pronounce the name, Paikakari. These are 4 of their cars. These are called fiducia cars, these sort of semi-streamlined. They were the last cars to operate, the newest cars that Wellington had. This is an unusual car. They do a lot of filming of different sorts in New Zealand, and they needed to duplicate a 3rd Avenue car. So they put a fake front on. This is a Brisbane trolley, actually. And they put a fake sloped 3rd Avenue front on it for filming at the museum. This is the fiducia car. Yeah, see, they entered service in 52 and were gone by 1964. So here it is. They have a decent length of track, and it's quite scenic. There's the gentleman who was driving that day. Interior, there were very few people at the museum. There were 2 or 3 people there. They said it was well before the season that I was there in November. Their track and a little bit of a grade. And then they have this other car, number 153. They haven't, I guess they haven't put the the advertising stuff back on that yet. But I rode each one of them. Beautiful, beautifully done restoration. There it is at the other end of the line, out near the ocean. And they have another one of the former cable cars lines from the Kilburn cableway. As you can see, the idea was that because it was tilted, you know, I can't tilt the picture, but it's kind of like I'd have to rotate the picture. These are the other cars they have in the museum. They have quite a number, and there's description. I can put up this one. Can we read it? Let's see. Solar, the first batch of Wellington electric trams. Okay, 17 is British Electric. And is there a poster on this one? Yeah, it's a double saloon 150. Oh, this was built in their own shops, this type. So now we get to a small town called Wanganui, population 40,000. It was the first provincial tramway in New Zealand, and the people at the museum told me about this. They've restored one car and have a little, something like 1,200 feet of track to run it on, and they only run it on weekend, Saturday or Sunday, and I just happened to be there at the timing. I stayed overnight in Wanganui on my way north. This is a map they have in the car barn, shows the track layout of what it once was. You know, there was a double track downtown. There's their depot. The train went all the way out to the beach here. Castle Cliff is the beach. And then this little street, it's not obvious here, it crosses the river Wanganui East. This map is upside down, sort of, from north to south. This is more in, this bridge is unchanged today. This is still there. And the trolley was a single track to one side on that bridge. This is where the depot is, and this, I believe, are Graham Stewart's pictures. I found in an article about this. This is a very typical semi-streamlined steam engine of the K series that operated on both islands. And here's their shops. This one is, you can see it's number 11 trailers. Here's number 10, a much sharper picture. There's a note by the photographer that this was a fluke. This was not something that happened regularly. Yes, there are a lot of sheep in New Zealand. My impression, by the way, is there are more cows than sheep when it comes to agriculture. And here it is crossing that bridge, which I did cross by car. I didn't see any of the tracks there. This is in the downtown, and there's some pictures of the last run, 26. Oh yeah, they had this narrow underpass. We could go back to the map. We could find out where that was. Another place where they had to cross over the railroad. Yeah, they had a steam dummy, which was used more for maintenance services than anything else. This is on the last, I believe, the last day in 1950. Here's a sharper, better picture. This street is relatively unchanged. They're very proud of this heritage area in terms of it's still, restaurants and shopping and so forth. And they are getting on the last run. This is one of the cars they're restoring right now. And here's the one they do have, number 12, that is fully restored and operating on this short section of track. And the next picture, we'll see someone turning the pole around. Yep, and then it goes out the other direction. I wrote it out back. It's like I said, it's only a little over 1,000 feet of track that they have at the moment. They would like to run it into the town, but there's, you know, the usual type of issues of getting permission. Now we're approaching the last city that I visited, which is Auckland. This map shows the railway system in Auckland as it was. It's slightly changed in that this railroad station now, they've extended it underground, and they're building a loop to come out this way and join the railway here. So they're rebuilding because they've electrified this. The electrification in Auckland only happened in 2014 for the commuter system. This was the tram system in Auckland. Fairly steep streets in Auckland too. They did have a Grand Junction, Grand Union, and the street. And that's more or less where this is a schematic of the different trolley lines that once ran. This is, I believe this is the inauguration day in 1904 or thereabouts. This is going out of downtown up the hill that that's the railroad crossing it. I can't remember the name of the hill right now. They had very busy downtown. I mean, one trolley after another. Here's some pictures. You can see during the heyday in the 20s with all the cars, there were more trolleys than cars. That's the last Christmas in 1953. Now these cars, some of these have been saved. This is one of the series of the last ones that ran in Auckland. And in 1942, they hired women during World War II, and I guess they stayed on until 1956 until the trolleys went out. So this was the last trolley, number 253. Here's a similar car, run S250, running on one of the lines. And here's 253 in color on Queen Street in downtown. This is another line that went out a few, the Point Chevalier went out a few years earlier. And another line, and the line cars, like this is the last run on one of the lines, and the line car is right there to start taking down the overhead. That's the last day in 1954. And some of the people riding noticed they were just wooden bench cars. Now this is at the Motat Museum. So Motat has a line in Auckland that runs between the museum and the museum. The museum has two locations. And notice the third rail here. It's because they run Wellington cars, which were 4 feet, as well as Auckland cars, and they have a number of Melbourne cars as well. So rather than re-gauging the Wellington cars, they created a 3-gauge line. So this is today, this is one of my pictures. When I arrived at the museum, we're very used to seeing the W cars from Melbourne that are pretty much everywhere. It's another one. And then I had made arrangements to meet, there's a little trolley loop in Wynyard, which is sort of downtown Auckland. And I don't remember how I found out about it, but I made arrangements with one of the people who's associated with MOTAT, which is the Museum of Transport and Technology, to get to visit it. And they were working on the different cars. So I got a nice couple of hours with the gentleman working there. This is let's see, that's another Melbourne car. They took it out of the barn for me. It just makes a loop in downtown. It doesn't go very far. So this is the current layout of the commuter service. And you can see here, this thing that they're building, the tunnel right now. This tunnel will be going under the city. That's their Sky Tower. So they're building stations. We're getting very near the end of the show. This is Auckland. This is at the West End at Swanton. Swanson, sorry, Swanson. These are the new cars. Just let me, I think I made a mistake earlier when I described the cars. I'm just trying to look at my notes here, excuse me for a minute. Right, Auckland is CAF of Spain. The New Zealand cars are Hyundai Rotem cars. They look a little bit like the silver liners that run in Philadelphia. These are the ones that are built. They're Spanish. And this is high voltage. This is 25 kilovolt, 50 hertz AC electrification, which is the same as the mainline electrification, the freight line, or the main, what they call the North Island main trunk. But I read something that electrically, even though they're the same voltage, they can't run the trains. Even if they extended the electrification, there's some issues with the current draw, and therefore they would have to change something else to do with it, so that it's not quite a compatible system. These are the last pictures. I found a location quite near where that picture was of the old tram going up the hill, where this line bores through a tunnel. And there's a little bridge to take pictures from, which was, and I finally had good weather on the last couple of days in the Auckland area. So very frequent service coming in and out. Train is, this is a train going away from us because this is, again, New Zealand. They drive their trains on the left. This is coming towards us. And that's just about the last one. And these are all the people I have to thank. Excuse me, Mr. Duncan of the Dockline Tram and Motap, Ferry Mead, Don McCara, who sent me the paintings, Alan Roy, who sent me some of the photographs from Ferry Mead. As I say, last but not least, Graham Stewart, who is the author of numerous books on New Zealand trams, who provided me with basically the background and how I was going to put this together. I found a lot of the material, and if anyone's interested, I can send an email to Bob, and he can send it out. A lot of this material is available on the internet. There's maps, there's pictures, there's history. Not quite as detailed as if you go through a book, but there's just a lot of material out there. So I'm gonna say thank you, and that's my show for tonight.